The Percy Jackson and the Olympian series is one of my most favorite book series of all time. It pretty much introduced me to Greek and Roman mythology, and one thing that ties the whole PGO series is Luke Castellan's descent to the dark side with Kronos. Luke was a demigod son of Hermes, and he wanted to destroy Olympus because of his horrible relationship with his father. Added to the fact that other demigods also experienced the same neglect and pain Luke felt, it led to a huge bunch of demigods siding with Kronos. It's pretty evident in the Riordanverse that the gods can be pretty horrible to their children, and I thought it would be fun to tier rank the Olympians to see who were actually good parents to their kids. Before getting into it though, here are the tiers I'll be placing them in. First is the best parent for the highest tier. Good would be the second tier for gods who I think are good enough but can't be considered the best parent. Okay for gods who are alright, but I wouldn't fully recommend them as parents. Don't recommend for the second to the last tier, and run for the last tier. Last thing before getting into it, spoiler warning, and with that, let's get started. The first god I see over here is Dionysus, the god of wine. I'm placing him in okay. Mr. D is not my most favorite character. He's horrible to a lot of the campers because he's bitter that Zeus forced him to stay in camp for centuries, and it's hard to imagine Mr. D as a parent sometimes. I was tempted to place him in don't recommend, but some part of me thinks that he genuinely cares about his family. The only time he's ever shown to be happy or kind is whenever his family is involved. We see this in the Titan's Curse when Dionysus reunites with his wife Ariadne, and Percy thinks to himself that Mr. D actually looks happy for once. Aside from this, we see him genuinely get heartbroken at the news of his son Castor's death in the Battle of the Labyrinth. He even tells Percy to look out for his other son Pollux in the Battle of Manhattan in the next book, and it's a rare sight to see in Mr. D. It shows that he does care about his family, even if he can be horrible to everyone else, so I think I'm placing him in okay. Next is Poseidon, the god of the seas. I'm placing him in good. From all the 12 Olympians, a lot of fans agree that Poseidon is a good godly parent, and I have to agree. He does care about Percy and Tyson a lot in the books. Although he can be neglectful like any other godly parent, and he did tell Percy, "I'm sorry you exist," in the first book of PJO, I don't really think he's that bad compared to the rest of the Olympians. Like, he's a good enough father for a god, but he's definitely not the best. I absolutely prefer Paul Blowfist over Poseidon for Percy, and I guess that's why he's staying on the good tier. After Poseidon is Ares, the god of war. I'm placing this in run because he was so horrible to his daughter Clarisse LaRue in the books. Fans have even speculated that he could have been verbally or physically abusive towards Clarisse because she flinched when Ares raised his tone in the Sea of Monsters. It's pretty evident in that book that Ares was pressuring Clarisse to complete the quest, and it came to the point that she actually seemed scared of her own dad. It's a pretty bad relationship even if Rick tried to lighten up the mood and make Ares be proud of Clarisse by the last Olympian, when Clarisse absolutely destroyed the dragon in the Battle of Manhattan. Ultimately, I don't think Ares is the best father, and he belongs to the last tier to me. Next is Apollo, or the god of prophecies, and I think I'll consider his post-Trials of Apollo version, because he truly changed throughout the series. He grew for the better in his own books, and I would even argue that his character development is one of the best things Rick has done for his characters. We don't really know that much about how Apollo is as a parent, but from his internal monologue in the Trials of Apollo, we can gather that he does care about his demigod children so much. He claims all of his kids, and he was genuinely supportive of his son Will Solus's relationship with Nico D'Angelo. Throughout the Trials of Apollo series, Apollo was protective of his demigod children in the Apollo cabin. When he realized that some of his kids were kidnapped by Nero in the Hidden Oracle, Apollo was ready to murder Nero just to save his kids. Plus, I had to give a shout out to every time he remembered his mortal lovers whenever he meets his demigod children. Apollo truly fell in love with them enough to remember them, and he automatically loves his kids, except for Octavian, but the fact that he's aware of his kids, unlike other gods, gives him a really good advantage in this tier list. So, I'm actually placing him in Best Parent for his post-Trials of Apollo version. If I was rating his version from PJO or Heroes of Olympus, I might have placed him in good, but I'm leaving him on top for the day. Apollo may be flawed, but I appreciate how much he cares about his kids when it comes down to it. After Apollo is Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I'm placing her in okay. Athena is one of my most favorite Greek goddesses, but not as a parent in PJO. I think she's relatively okay in the sense that it could have been worse, because she does seem to care about Annabeth to an extent. Like, she gave Annabeth the iconic Yankees invisibility cap, and Athena even made Annabeth the new architect on Olympus by the last Olympian. So it's pretty clear that she does trust Annabeth and is pretty fond of her. I mean, the Riordan Wiki even mentions how Athena considered Annabeth as her pride and joy, so she does care about her kids. However, I was tempted to place her in Don't Recommend because of her fallout with Annabeth and the Mark of Athena. Also, we learned in that book that Athena was sending so many of her kids to follow the Mark, even if they always died until Annabeth. Like, it's such a disturbing thought. I mean, think about it. Imagine trying to prove your worth to your godly mother when you just die in a quest just like all of your half-siblings. It's actually pretty dark to think about, and Athena can be brutal like this sometimes. Ultimately though, she's going to the okay tier. Next is Zeus, the king of the gods. Honestly, I'm placing him in Don't Recommend. If I would include how he acts around his godly kids, I would be tempted to place him in the last tier because of how he treated Apollo and Mr. D. For Apollo, Zeus literally blamed Apollo for something that Apollo didn't even do or control, and sent Apollo to death quest after death quest just to get back to godhood. For Mr. D, Zeus forced him to stay in Camp Haplet for centuries just because they were after the same girl. It's pretty horrible, and Zeus can be incredibly brutal, but at the same time, I don't think he's done anything as bad as Ares to his demigod children. Ares seems to be verbally and physically abusive, but Zeus hasn't really been that bad. Zeus is very flawed and he is neglectful to his children, but he can help once in a while, like when he cared enough to turn Thalia Grace into a pine tree to save her, or when he seemed to genuinely care about Jason Grace. Scenes like this help us see Zeus in a kinder light, but I don't really recommend him as a parent, especially in mythology. After this is Hermes, the god of thieves and travelers. I'm placing him in good. He truly cared for his kids, and even allowed his cabin to be a home for unclaimed demigods. Hermes is also very kind to Percy, and actually helps Percy with his quest in the Sea of Monsters, just because Hermes cares about his son Luke so much. I know that a lot of people in the fandom have mixed opinions on Hermes' parenting, because he wasn't really the best, but for a god, he did care so much for Luke. He mourned Luke's death in The Last Olympian, and he is pretty level-headed and kind for a god. So I think he belongs in good. Up next is Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Aphrodite is actually going to good, mainly because she isn't that bad. Like, I know, the bar is on the floor with the Olympians sometimes, but it's true. She hasn't really done anything remotely horrible for her demigod children. She seems to care about Piper McLean, and even gave her a makeover, and visited her a few times, like in The Mark of Athena or in The Lost Hero. Aphrodite is nice to her kids, and she hasn't done anything remotely horrible to them, so I'm placing her here. Next is Hephaestus, the god of craftsmanship. I'm actually placing him in good as well, because like Aphrodite, he hasn't done anything remotely horrible. He seems to care a lot about Leo, and he does claim his kids compared to the other gods who are lazy to do so. He even fights side by side with Leo against Gaia in the Blood of Olympus, and he helps Leo with Festus a lot of times in The Lost Hero. Hephaestus may be neglectful at times, like he isn't always present for his kids, but he does try his best. He even broke godly laws just to get to Leo in The Lost Hero, and he does seem to love and care about him, so he's going to good. After Hephaestus is Hades, the god of the underworld. I completely forgot to mention it earlier, but I'll add him here to the mix because even if he isn't an official Olympian, he's a pretty important god in the series. So anyway, I'm going to place Hades in the good tier. I know a lot of fans who are children of Hades, and they often hype him up as this pretty cool dad, and I can't blame them. Hades' dynamic with Nico around the heroes of Olympus to the sun and the star is really sweet. Hades gave Nico a zombie chauffeur as a present, and even broke rules just so that Nico can be with his mother and sister one last time in the sun and the star. Hades isn't perfect, but it's clear that he does grow to care about Nico and his Roman daughter Hazel. However, I was kind of tempted to place him in okay because I hated that he told Nico that he wished Nico died instead of Bianca. Like, I know that he doesn't really mean that literally, but at the same time, that's not really how you talk to your child. And that just made me dislike Hades for a bit in the books. Aside from that though, he does make an effort to be there for Nico and Hazel, so I think good is the tier for him. Next is Artemis, the goddess of the hunt. Although she doesn't have kids of her own because she's a virgin goddess and swore off men forever, I'm including her here because she's technically an Olympian. If I had to imagine Artemis as a parent, I would place her in the highest tier or best parent. From what we can see in the Hunters, she's fair, honest, and kind. Artemis is a great leader for them, and she truly cares for her maidens. If Artemis had her own kids in a different universe, I can picture her acting the same way since she hasn't really done anything that horrible to the demigods in the Riordanverse. Although she has a prejudice against male demigods, she doesn't really treat them horribly unless they disrespect or wrong her, and I think she would appreciate her kids much more than the other gods if she had kids. Alright, we're almost done here. After Artemis is Demeter, the goddess of harvesting. I don't really know what to feel about Demeter. She's almost non-existent in the Trials of Apollo, even if Meg McCaffrey, a major character in the series, is her daughter. We don't even know that much about the relationship between Meg and Demeter because Meg was pretty much kidnapped and raised by Nero, so it's kind of hard to see how Demeter was a mother to Meg. I'm placing her in okay. I mean, she's barely there, but she did claim Meg and Cap, so she does care enough to do that. I know it's the bare minimum, but I can't let her be in the same tier as Zeus. Demeter seems chill, but she doesn't do that much for Meg. And last but not the least is Hera, the queen of the gods. I'm placing her in don't recommend, because honestly, where do you even begin? Even if Hera doesn't have demigod children because she hasn't cheated on Zeus at all, I will place her here because she doesn't seem to be a good mother in general. She literally threw Hephaestus out of Olympus because he was ugly, and I don't think she'd be the type to claim her kids in camp if she actually had demigod children. She would probably be in the background and would only care if you made her proud, just like what she did with Jason Grace. Hera actually cared for Jason even if Jason wasn't her real son, but I don't think she would be a good parent given how she treated Hephaestus. So she's going here. And those are all the gods I'll tier rank in this video. So how about you? Who's the best godly parent to you? Let me know in the comments down below.